So it's party time in the Rotary Club's Old Sits Hall. Okay, so we have we've got people waiting for both these items, haven't we? Yeah, we do. Yeah, we'll stay in order. So moving now to Mr. Ridd. Welcome, sir. Agenda item number 8, which is the giant bike sculpture, same as the one we have at the top of our control gate. So, Richard, did you want to come up? And is there anybody else with Richard?
Richard and Kath. So,
Kath there. Yep. Also went to. Where did we go, Kath? We went to. That's right. That was last year, wasn't it? Yeah. And Rose is not here, so okay, Richard and Kath and Mr. Ridd.
Orders from Rose Blackley is on a plane to South America.
Oh, good, cool.
I'll hand over to these guys in a second. Unfortunately, I wasn't at this. This went through the Turangi-Tongariro Community Board when I had man flu, so I wasn't actually present for the item, but I'm aware of the decision that was made. So I'm just going to hand over to Richard and Kath. We'll probably take you through it a bit, and then I'll try and answer any questions after that.
Thanks, John. Apologies from Rose Blackley. She's asked me to speak on her behalf, and Kath is here to talk about an exciting initiative called Bikes in Schools, which Bike Taupo are initiating. Last year in September, we unveiled the first giant bike, and it's fair to say it was quite a learning experience building it. Rose and I had been overseas and seen many giant bikes, and they were just sort of bits of metal put together that looked like a bike. What we ended up with was a work of art. I mean, Marcel, the artist, and he's an artist who built it, put 661 hours into building the bike, which hence the budget blew out. Having said that, the budget increased, but it was actually all donated time, materials, and a little bit of money. The big thing about launching that bike last year was that we learned a whole lot of things about bikes, and they can be catalysts. And we were asked to do one in Turangi. We see the bike as being not just a public art, but a catalyst for two things: economic development, and get more people to stop. I don't know if you've seen the one up in Control Gates Hill there. Number of people who stop, get their photograph taken, all over Facebook. Businesses around the country using it to promote themselves. But secondly, to get kids more active. And there's 3 things we were wanting to link into this project: is a pump track, similar to the one in Spa Park, which kids of all ages zoom up and go around. Secondly, some BMX facilities. And thirdly is a Bikes in Schools program, which Kath is going to talk about.
Well, my name's Kath Oldfield. I work for Bike Taupo. It's my real work over job as well, but we won't talk about that one. At that cycling summit we had last year, it became really obvious that this district's really good at being a cycling destination. We're providing mountain bike tracks and events for riders from out of town, but we're missing a real core group of our own people not riding. And this is Rose's cycling strategy for Turangi would get some of our real people on bikes. So yes, the giant bike draws attention to Turangi. We've got it down there and its cycling opportunities, but I'm more interested in the kids in the district getting on bikes. At the moment, with $3,000 a year from council to help fund it, thank you very much, I take bikes into schools in Taupo. I'm in contact with Tongariro School. I want to go down there and get those kids riding as well. I've been to Waitahanui and those kids love me there. It's great. I'm largely voluntary work, but I do get a little bit of funding to pay for it. When you take bikes into schools, you don't have to have a structure for them. You just turn up with a bike and a helmet and the kids just ride. And if we gave kids in Turangi more facilities to get on bikes and ride, we're going to be putting stuff back for the local people to ride, not just visitors from Wellington and Auckland and Australia coming and spending their money here. So all they need is the equipment and the space. So it'd be really good to see, as Richard just said, a pump track, a BMX track. I heard talk of the skate park, that'd be great too. And dirt jumps. And this bikes in schools idea is to get bike tracks into every school in the district. Some of you will have met Paul McCardle, and he's got a trust, and he works towards getting a cycle track inside the school grounds. I've given up trying to get kids to bike to school. We'll focus on getting them riding in the first place. So Tongariro School would be wonderful because they've also got the asset of the Tongariro River Trail. So those high school kids can get the little ones riding. As they get bigger, they can go out and along the river trail and still not be on the road, but still riding. So the idea with this Bikes in Schools is you have a bike track inside, up to 50 bikes, depending on the size of the school, a helmet for every child, a lock-up storage, and a cycling champion person to help them with their riding. Someone will put their hand up for that, I'm sure. So getting kids onto bikes is good for everyone. It's better for their health. It's fun. It builds self-esteem. It gets people out of their cars and learn to transport without getting in their car. And if I can just indulge you for a while, I'd like to tell you a little story about a little boy here in town. His parents aren't available for him. He's fostered by his whānau. All 5 of them are fostered out. And he was losing it. He was very unhappy. He was 6 years old and just not happy. I ran into him with his Bikes in Schools and at the after-school program with the bikes. And I said to his whānau, perhaps this little boy, because he loves to ride, perhaps he'd like to go a little bit further. And some of the members of the BMX club took him under his wing. People donated jerseys and gloves, and someone bought him a bike, and someone who was just at the track donated some money to buy a license for him. And that little boy's just turned 7. He's been all around the country riding BMX with his extended BMX whānau, which is wonderful. And he rode at the Nationals, and he is going to ride at the World BMX Champs in Auckland in July. And he's been on a bike for 6 months. Now, this little boy was really unhappy, throwing tantrums, didn't want to go to school, didn't want to do things, and now he's 10 foot tall. Now, I'm not saying that every little kid in the district's going to go to the World BMX Champs or do a triple backflip like Jed Milden, but having access to bikes and to tracks and to parks gives children opportunities. It gives children of all ages something to do, and a pump track and a BMX track, especially those boys, not just boys but girls as well, gives them somewhere to go, something to build, something to hang out with. It's just a win-win all around the place. So with support from the council and the Turangi Community Board, local iwi, and with some key people in the district down in Turangi, it'd be really good to see the great bike. Yep, it'll be great. But I see the bigger picture in seeing those little kids and big kids riding at the skate park, at the dirt jumps, a pump track, and it'd be great to have a BMX track as well.
Yeah, well, thank you very much for that.
Yeah, so the giant bikes is a bit more, hopefully it'll be a catalyst, something that the people of Turangi can be proud of.
Okay, Councillor Quate.
Is there space where you're going to put the giant bike for all those other facilities? I mean, whereabouts? Where is the site for them?
I mean, the giant proposal is just a giant bike proposal, but what we're hoping will be a catalyst for all these other things to happen. Those other things will happen around town somewhere.
On the park next door isn't the idea. By the coffee cart there.
But just to focus on the agenda item, we're talking about building a giant bike. Okay? Yeah. Councillor Kipper?
Yeah, I just want to signal that I'll move the suggested resolution. There's just 2 things here though. I was going to move the either, but I see the second or says X number of dollars. What does that amount to? Does that mean that if it's going to cost more than 20,000, are we going to?
No, they gave you the opportunity to, if you didn't want to put 20,000, you might want to put 50 or 10, whatever you decide. So it gave you an open.
This overrides a resolution that was made in December, right? We made a resolution in December 2001 to put $3,500 towards it. Now we've been asked for 20,000, and if council didn't want to do the 20,000, or it could be 10,8,760. I don't know. That's what you say. However, this has come to council as a recommendation from the Turangi-Tongariro Community Board. Mr. Manhattan.
Through the chair, I'd like to draw your attention to the budget that you have approved for the current financial year, and on page 8 bar 1, it refers to the fact that there's only 12,000 left within that budget.
But the 55,000, Councillor Hennett, the 55,000 is made up of kind.
Yes, but I refer you to the suggested resolution where it's talking based on the recommendation of the Turangi Community Board, that
You're saying
20,000 be contributed.
Yeah, but you're saying our budget, council's budget for this financial year ending in June, only has 12,000 left in it.
Correct.
That's, yeah, just trying to clarify that. Yeah, Councillor Anderson.
I could be wrong about this, but I think I'm correct. When we approved the last budget for the 3,000, the project in Taupo for the bike was underway, but the full cost of that wasn't necessarily known as it is at this stage, because it's been quite significantly more than what was expected with the giant bike here. And I think from memory, when we made that decision about the 3,000, we were working on the original estimate for that, which was, I think the figures are here, considerably less, wasn't it? So obviously you've got a better understanding now of what the cost implications are. So situation.
Just for matters of clarity, we put 3,500 cash into the bike on top of the hill, yeah? That's why, going back in my memory, that we did the same for Turangi at that time. What Mr. Van Hennet is pointing out, and you now know your facts and figures more clearly, with more clarity and accuracy, you're asking for 20,000, but what Mr. Van Hennet is saying, there's only $12,000 left in the bucket, which ends on June 31st. So, again, Councillor Henderson.
Yeah, I acknowledge there's 12,000 there in the budget for this year currently, so that's possibly, as I think Mr. Van Hennet's alluding to, all that we can actually approve currently, as I understand. I'll just point out, though, too, that over the past 3 years, 2010, 11 and 12, I think we've spent $166,000 of public money on public art sculptures. To the best of my knowledge, all that money has been expended in Taupo.
Councillor Downard?
It was matched though, wasn't it? It was dollar for dollar.
Any sculpture, your policy,
It's cash, not coin.
your policy is 50% cash.
Just confirming that, yeah.
Councillor Kepper?
The next question is to make up the $20,000 to make the scheme fly, and I must add that Rose Blakely and Richard and Captain should be really complimented. They've been right out there trying to get this thing up and going for a long time now, and we're just making some ground on it. So the 20,000 that is needed, we could take the 12,000 in the existing budget and the rest, the other 8,000 out of the next budget, our 1st of July budget.
That budget has not yet been approved. It is still out for consultation, and until that plan is adopted before the 30th of June, you cannot commit.
Hang on, Councillor Hickling first, and Councillor Downard.
Yeah, I was just going to say I would support the $12,000 because that's what we've got in the present year's budget. But just a comment about the money that's spent previously. We've only become one district rating area over the past 12 months. And so prior to that, it was all in TK. So that's why it was spent in Taupo.
Yeah, I'm not too concerned about that. We've got to focus on what we're doing here at the moment. Councillor Downard?
Yeah, I'll agree with Councillor Hickling. We can't spend any more than what we've got in the budget. There's other avenues that we could probably look at. The 8,000 later on in the new financial year. I don't know whether that'll hold it up, Richard. But yeah, 12,000 is.
Firstly, I have to run a meeting under meeting rules, etc. There's a movement. There's a movement. That doesn't sound right, does it? The motion to supply $20,000 to be contributed has already been moved by Councillor Kepper. If it doesn't receive a seconder, it falls. But I'll ask for the seconder. Then it can be spoken for or against. And then if that happens, it can go back to a motion between someone else of 12,000 or something like that. But all I need to know from you, Mr. Van Hennet, if your governance team here today were to second it and were to move to 20,000, how does that work as a council?
Council will have to approve 8,000 unbudgeted expenditure.
And if it has a mind to do that, can it do that?
It can do that if it's got a mind to do it.
So to run the meeting, okay, Councillor Anderson.
Yeah, I hear the issues around the budget and what's there this year and last year, but my question is, if that is the case as it now appears, and it's being explained, I've got no problem with that, but why was a motion put before the Turangi Community Board, which I moved, to expend $20,000, which technically we aren't able to without doing unbudgeted expenditure? And if that was the case, as it appears to be, when the community board actually made that decision, they weren't made aware of that.
I can't answer that. I wasn't there. Councillor Kepper.
Perhaps I can speak to it. Firstly, I'm going to stick with the EVA, the 20,000, because that was what the board recommended, and I'm obliged to run with the board's decision. The second point I want to make, if that money isn't forthcoming, this project will probably fall over. And as I said, after all the diligent work that has been done on this project, I'd hate to see it fall over. The other points I wish to make is where this statue is intended to be sited is right by where the coffee cart is, just over the town side of the Tongariro Bridge on State Highway 1. This is becoming an area that is really popular for breaks and so on. There is a dog reserve there. Richard has mentioned other things like jump parks and so on. That's all going to be part 2 of the next stage of the revitalisation. And as regards jumps and those sort of things, this area has not been identified for that purpose, but it is right on the river trail. With the revitalisation that's going on at the moment, we've widened the footpath to allow bikes to go under the underpass outside the main road into Turangi, the Kaingaroa. So this area has increased in activity. It will continue to increase in activity, and I can only but support it that we use the existing 12,000 out of the existing budget, and that we go for 8,000 unbudgeted. 8,000 in my mind is a small amount of unbudgeted money compared to the amounts of unbudgeted money that have gone through this council since I've been sitting in the seat.
Yeah, well, thank you, Councillor Kepper. But just before I take your questions, it's also just been pointed out to me by Mr. Menhena and Mr. Green here, and I'll point it out to you. Your policy is $1 for $1 for sculptures, okay? There's no, what are the actual dollars that are going into this project? I can see here everybody's put their time down on that, and I can see that, but let's focus. Where's the $1 for $1 input in this one? So if we're putting in 20,000 to build that statue over there, whatever it is, they put in 20,000. This is the point that Mr. Mayor, you have a policy in council. Now, if you want to go against that policy, that's up to you. There's 2 issues. One, your policy, and second is how much is in the bucket. Now, nobody's not denying it's all good to have jump packs and all that stuff. I hear you. Councillor Henderson?
Yeah, I'm aware that's the policy. I just question whether that has been applied strictly to the $166,000 already expended on sculptures.
Better have.
So that's been all met dollar for
dollar. Better have, or
so
I'll tell you to be some heads roll around here.
No, that's the question I'm asking. So it's all been met dollar for dollar in the community. And this money cannot be expended and would not be expended until that's matched dollar for dollar in real cash terms from the community.
I guess the issue, Councillor, is the real cash term. So when you look at the chart for what the costs for the Taupo sculpture is, what I'm not clear on, and Richard, you might be able to clarify it, is how much of that was A, real money rather than in kind, because we can only match real money, and then B, of that, how much was design, which we don't need to replicate in Turangi because you've already done the design for the Taupo ones.
For $7,500 was in cash. A lot of businesses said we will support it. They can't no engineering in the engineering. They get $5,500 doing the engineering design for the sculpture. I'll do the same for the Turangi one. They didn't write a check out for $5,500. Someone said we'll paint the bike for you. Someone said we'll transport it for you. We'll use our crane for you. They didn't give us a check. So in terms of cash, $7,500 compared to the rest of the services. And we were hoping that businesses in Turangi would rally around and say, hey, look, this is the way of building community support. You actually get behind this thing actually, as opposed to going to a trust or another funding agency to say, can you have a check for $25,000 or $30,000?
Councillor Downard, then Councillor Williams, then Councillor Hickley.
So that 7,500 cash in kind, was that donated by Turangi businesses?
No, this is the local one, sorry. We hadn't started the fundraising for the Turangi one.
Richard, to clarify, was that 3,500 council contribution and 3,500 that you'd got, or 4,000 that you'd got from someone? Seven on top of the 3,500. Okay.
So you actually matched us on this one 2-1. Right.
And then of course we realised it was going to be, this is going to be a work of art, going to cost a lot more. then we started going to local business and saying, would you support us? We actually had people coming to us to
You can
say,
see our problem now. We've got a policy and a bucket of money. And I've been a little bit rude. I was over here too much, and Anna Councillor Kirk had her hand up
I
for a
just
while.
wondering if I can do this just through the chair, ask Councillor Kepper as the chair of the community board why there was a dissension and why there was someone abstained from voting.
If I remember rightly, one of the TT community boards even wrote letters to the newspaper.
That wasn't. Sorry? That wasn't the same.
Or was it? Wasn't it? Okay. Well, the question, I'll allow that question through the floor, through the chair.
Mrs. Smallman and Mr. Tifari.
Yes, but there was another community member that was.
I can tell you the abstention. He has previously said that local businesses could produce a bike, but the bike that I've seen that he's dragged around on this trailer is just as Richard described before, just an ordinary little push bike. Now, just getting back to the money side of things again, when we went to...
Can you just finish answering my question first, Mrs.
Yeah,
Smallman?
just a question, please, Councillor.
They didn't divulge why they abstained. They just chose
Is
to
it
abstain.
of public? Is it of public knowledge who abstained?
Yeah,
Yes, it's in the...
And
Tifari.
and they're both of Turangi-Tongariro.
One is.
Another board member was quite vocal in the newspapers and everything when this one went up here, and has now voted for it. Okay, that's answered that question, please. Then it was Councillor Williams.
Yes, I'd just like to support Councillor Kepper's nominate.
12,000 now.
Yeah, and
8,000 later.
and I would like to second that. And I'll do it on this basis that I understand that in fact a lot of this is in kind, but are we being too pedantic here? Because in actual fact, if I was Cardinal Engineering or one of the other suppliers, what is to stop me giving cash and then sending an invoice in? As long as we're trusting that this is a reputable group, which I would not question that, have a hesitation in believing what these figures are from this group, the giant bike group. As long as we believe that those figures are realistic, I think we are being pedantic and making this in-kind donation not acceptable. Because as I said, for all intents and purposes, it could be cash and then finished with an invoice.
Just for me, a little bit, I'm coming back to Councillor Kepper. I really am struggling with this 55,000, though, Richard, when you've already built one. I see the majority of the 55,000 is 33,000 to Marcel. And my other question to you is this including GST or plus? We live in a commercial world out here.
Really,
including GST, it's about 65 grand.
Marcel's an artist. And you won't mind me saying this. He gave us a quote to build a bike. He ended up spending 661 hours on it, to a detriment of his other business. What we're saying is that we don't think that's sustainable in a second bike. We want him to be the artist to do the second one. The first one is so fantastic. The reviews have been so good.
Isn't it going to be identical? Is it going to be different again?
Different colour.
The CNC cutting and all that can.
And it's fair to say, when we first came to council, we came here for one bike, and this council asked us for two bikes.
At three and a half grand each.
Following your wishes.
Councillor Kepper.
I just have one further thing to say in supporting the suggested part of the resolution is that when we did become one rating, we had $1 million sitting in the forestry fund, which we had to hand over. We would have used that at the time to build this bike.
Oh. What about RTE?
Okay, Councillor. Okay.
We don't know.
Okay, I don't expect any response to that. Councillor Heckling.
Richard, do you think there is a good opportunity of the community or getting more funding out of the community in Turangi for this project?
I think it's certainly in kind, and I think we've got a huge advantage in terms of them buying into the project by saying we actually help build it, build support. In terms of raising money from Turangi, I think that's probably a bit of a long ask.
Why can't we give you
So-
some stuff in kind?
So do you, will the, should we say the 12,000 that we've got in our present budget, would that be a good start? You wouldn't put it on the back burner because you've not got enough money.
We hope to have 20 to make. We really was to try and give Marcel some money this time. And if you look at other artworks, I mean, those artists deserve to be paid. And yeah, very little.
Okay, Councillor Crate, then
I'd just
Councillor.
like to get emotional and say we are one district. What has happened in this end of the district should be replicated in the other because we did vote on it. I've seen what the impact of that bike is on the corner of Hoipi Road and thing, and I'd like to second Gary's original motion.
I've already got a second.
Already got a second, okay. Heard it.
So, Councillor Henderson.
While I support this and I move the original motion to suggest that we recommend that we consider the $20,000, there's one question I just want to raise, and I've left this till last, is I am surprised that given that we've been through this exercise already, and given that the first time it was gone through in Taupo, the cost ended up being significantly more than was originally talked about, that second time round, we don't actually have a detailed breakdown of what it actually might cost. There's just a $20,000 lump sum, but there's no detail about, because I mean, one of the questions kicking around in my head is what in-kind services would you need to get this done in Turangi? There's not a detailed breakdown of it. So
That's a creation of a
Okay,
Taupo
through the chair, just stick with it, please.
So yeah, that was just my point. I would have thought that having been through that exercise, we might have had some.
Well, there is some in-kind stuff we do. We've even got a working prison down here. I mean, 3 truckloads of soil, $800. We've got soil. I'm a little bit concerned. Halliwell Construction, now Brad works for me at the moment, so site preparation, that's digging the hole for the footings. I can get some of John Key's guests out to help you dig the hole. The other one, I'm a little bit, did Cardno Engineering honestly charge you guys $5,350 to engineer to put this in the ground? Because I put up big signs outside Sanyong dealerships and things. I know how much my engineering bills are. They really charged you $5,350.
Designed the footings, and then there was some brackets in terms of actually sitting it on there, some engineering in terms of wind loading, some people climbing all over it. There's a little bit more involved in that.
Okay, well, we've got a seconder on the floor. It was moved, it was seconded. Councillor Down, I'll take your last one before I put this motion. If that motion were to fall over, we could go to a second motion, which is our policy and our bucket of money, or if it goes, it becomes unbudgeted, and you have the right to do that as governance. You had your hand up, Councillor Down.
Well, I'd just like to say that I don't like to go against the community board when they make a recommendation, and that's why we've got them down there to give us a steer and advice. And I know Councillor Williams said it, we're being pedantic, but we have got a policy. We went through a horrendous long-term plan in our annual plan and chopping and being harsh on some of the allocations of money, and I feel as though I can't go outside that $12,000 left in this budget this year. I just feel it's my responsibility as a councillor that we can only spend what's in a budget, and I'm quite happy to spend that $12,000 and then work towards trying to look at other avenues that we can do that match our policy and our budget, and then also try and come up with the 20,000. That's just the way that I feel.
Anybody else want to speak? Hang on, please. Does anybody, I've heard a lot of speaking for the motion. Does anybody else want to speak against the motion that's on the floor? Against, please. Councillor John.
I'm with Mike. Councillor Downer, the budget is 12. It's a whole separate issue to go and spend another 8. It has to be debated. I can't endorse a recommendation when we are outside the parameters of what we have to work within. I'm comfortable with spending the money in Turangi, but the motion as it stands, we've only got 12 and it's asking for 20. It doesn't fit.
Okay, I'm only asking against the motion at the moment, Councillor Henderson. So if there's... Okay, just before we go there, so what the two councillors are saying that if this was to fall over, you would support the 12,000 which is budgeted for and within the policy parameters. Okay, Councillor Heckler?
Yes, I would support both Councillor Downard and Councillor Johnson on the $12,000.
To support that, you're going to have to vote against the motion that's on the floor at the
I
moment.
will be voting against the motion as it's put at the moment.
Okay, does anybody else? Councillor Kirk?
I just think that you guys do an absolutely fantastic job, but I too will be voting against this motion. I just don't. The creation of the Taupo giant bike to me is not enough information to truly be able to spend money that we don't have. So, no disrespect to you personally at all. I will be voting against it as well.
I'll just come to you, Councillor Henderson. Is there any chance that the Taupo Moana Rotary Club, Taupo Moana, through the bike challenge, is going to put anything into this? Could they put up the other 8,000?
I've been supportive in the past. I'm supportive of the Taupo bike.
Can you choose my words carefully? Can you see what the councillors who are wanting to only approve the $12,000? Can you see where they're coming from, and do you appreciate that? Councillor Henderson.
Just to clarify, I moved the original motion for $20,000 on the understanding that we were actually able to give that money. The community board at the time, they decided we're not aware that part of that would have to be done as unbudgeted expenditure. So not knowing that information, they made their decision on a basis that wasn't correct. What I know now, given that some of this would have to be done as unbudgeted expenditure, and given that if it was, we don't actually have a specific budget presented to us for this project, I do think it would be irresponsible to approve the other $8,000 as well. So I support putting the $12,000 towards it. But I'm most concerned that when we actually discussed this at community board level, the discussion certainly wasn't as deep and complex as this one has been here, because not all the facts were necessarily before us.
Councillor, sorry, you're not a councillor. Mr. Green has asked to speak.
Just wanted to, and it follows on from that discussion from the councillor, I guess, in terms of what happened at the TT board. The way that we've always played with we've always viewed the sculpture money in the past is that it's a first come, first served basis, but often the decisions are made to fund something some even years in advance of the cheque being written. So if you think of some of the sculptures that we had, I'm thinking Flip took 2 years at least by the time the council made the resolution to spend the money. It was 2 years later that we actually wrote the cheque. So of course it was out of the budget 2 years later that we wrote that cheque. So you'll see, and just mean it's absolutely right, we've only got $12,000 left this year, but we do have $25,000 next year. And the discussion that was at the board is there's no way this bike's going to be built, and therefore the cheque required prior to 1st of July. And so therefore, I understand what Mr. Menhennet said in terms of the money's not confirmed then, until it goes through the LTP, but that was the basis. And we've done that for every sculpture that we've had to date. It's been, the decision has been made and the money has been put forward, but we haven't written the cheque until the thing is finished.
Okay, well, Councillor,
I'd just like to comment. In those first 3 or 4 years, we had 100,000. Keep in mind now that we are only down to 25,000 for the whole 12 months.
build everything back, yeah.
So, in those days, prior, we was able to probably think that we'd still got sufficient money in the budget to be able to do things, whereas at the moment now we've only got 25,000.
Councillor Truman?
Yeah, just in relation to comments made by Mr. Henderson about not being aware of the budget. Was the TT board also aware of the policy that you had to come up with $1 when they made that decision?
Yep, I believe that was discussed. Yeah.
Well, I really want to see this go ahead. I really think you guys are doing a great job. I will be supporting the others with our policy and our budget, which tells me that the numbers will fail. But I will put the original resolution, unless you two would like to withdraw it and move in second that we give the $12,000. Because I think if I put the motion, it will probably fail 5-4 or a number like that. Want to speak?
Me, Rick, I'd be happy if you put the motion as it is. That is the 12,000 plus the 8,000, and put it to the vote. We lose it, and then I'll have another motion to put.
You're moving not 12 and 8. You're moving to you're moving
I'm
the
only saying that
resolution.
because
with-
that's what the board recommendation was.
Yeah, I hear you.
Sticking
I
with
hear you.
their
I
recommendation.
hear you, Councillor Kepper. I'm just clarifying what you have moved. You are moving the first part that 20,000 be contributed to the creation of a giant bike sculpture in Turangi, as per the Turangi-Tongariro Community Board recommendation 5093, dated 9th of April, and that was seconded by Councillor Williams. I've been around the room and listened to most of the talk. I personally won't support that. I'll be supporting the $12,000 as per policy and budget. But if you wish me to put the motion, I will put the motion.
Wish you to put the motion.
I hereby put
Lost.
the motion, and a clear show of hands, please, to support, moved by Councillor Kepper, seconded Councillor Williams. All those in favour, please. 1, 2, 3. The motion falls. Would you like to move, and I think it would probably pass by what I'm reading here, that the last resolution here, where it says X, put the word, the figures $12,000 into there, and let me clarify, Inc. or plus GST, please? I get sick of these things where I don't know.
Plus GST.
Plus GST.
Okay. So Councillor Kepper, $12,000 plus GST be contributed to the creation of a giant bike sculpture in Turangi. Would you like to move that motion?
So moved.
Yes.
The $12,000 in the budget, is that
Including GST or plus?
That's excluding.
Well, it depends. The party who receives the funds, if they are GST registered, then we can claim back the GST. If they're not GST registered, then it's 12,000 inclusive of GST.
Can we keep GST back off you? We can. Right. So it's 12,000 plus GST. Now I ask again, do you want to be the mover of that motion, Councillor Kepper?
Wish to move that motion.
And seconded, Councillor Williams. All those in favour, say aye. Aye.
Right.
Carried. Thank you very much. I do sincerely, I know I'm speaking on behalf of everyone here, I sincerely hope that we can get this to happen and not fall over simply because we are adhering to our budget and policies, which we are doing very, very strictly at the moment for obvious reasons that I'm sure you know about because you live in Taupo. Thank you very much.
See you in 3 months.